Greetings. Welcome back to the Black Pill. Today we're going to talk about fascists and traditional masculinity. It's going to be a long and weird story, I suppose. Fascists like to push the notion that boys don't cry. Men crying on television offend them. People with sad stories on game shows. Men with sad stories on game shows offend them. Boys and men are supposed to not cry. Toughen up. You're the alpha wolf. What the fuck are you doing shedding tears? There is some purpose or reason behind this. This serves a fascist end. Perhaps without intending to, and yet nevertheless, the end is served. So where we have to start is, are rich people bad? That pretty much is settled science. The more money you have, the more questionable your decisions tend to be. In particular, we know that poor people give more money to charity as a percentage of their income. Rich people just aren't interested in charity except to the degree that it gets them tax benefits. And we know that when poor people give to charity, they give to more meaningful charities. Rich people give to things that benefit themselves, like the Walmart family opening a massive, expensive fine art gallery down to wherever they keep their headquarters, Alabama or somewhere. Where it's a poor community and nobody gives a damn about fucking Monet and Picasso down there. They need food and they need jobs that pay more than the absolute bare minimum wage part-time with no benefits. That's not an act of charity. It's an ultimately self-serving charity. The Trump organization, of course, is famously banned from participating in any charitable activities because their charities are so self-serving. But go back also to Mitt Romney giving 7 figures apparently to the Mormon church, calling that charity. And look, Mormons do good things, okay? I'm not here to shit on Mormons today. In particular, they're quite good at food banking. They're big in food banking organizations. At the same time, while they're doing food banking, they're also funding anti-gay organizations, opposing California's proposition, is it Prop 8, that would have something to do with same-sex marriage, and the Mormons are right there spending money across state lines, trying to defeat human rights for gay people. And the other major thing that money goes to fund is sending missionaries to Paris. There's just no room in my head for the idea that what the world really needs now is French Mormons. There's just no room. There's no room. That fundamentally is not charity. And then what you won't catch the rich people doing is volunteering. Poor people volunteer far more hours, and again, far more meaningful hours than the wealthy. So, I mean, on one basic measure of goodness, rich people very much underperform. The more money you have, the fewer hours, and the less of your money you give away to people who need it as a percentage of what you have. So we have a couple other problems. One is the BMW problem. What you do is you set up a hidden camera at a crosswalk and you just watch, you observe, you get a panel of observers to rate driver behavior. So who slows down for drivers in the crosswalk and lets them, drivers in the crosswalk, who slows down for pedestrians in the crosswalk so that they can safely get across the road. And then you compare behavior with brands of car, and BMW drivers, you might have guessed, are the rudest drivers on the road by that measure. And other sorts of measures, it's a little more complicated. You get out on the road and see who's letting people merge and moving over for police and so forth. But BMW drivers and Audi drivers are notoriously bad. There's just something about spending $80,000 on a car that makes you feel like you're entitled to drive it. Get out of my way. What are you doing on my road? All right, so on all sorts of measures, that's just a couple, that's the tip of the iceberg. On all sorts of measures, rich people morally underperform poor people. So your next question has to be, how did they get that way? Is it that having a weak moral character, being willing to break a few eggs to make an omelet helps you climb the greasy stripper pole that is business life in the United States of America in the 2020s? Or is it something about becoming wealthy that turns people into assholes? And it turns out to be the second one. Again, tons and tons of evidence. One of the tips of this particular iceberg is Monopoly. So we're going to recruit randos to play Monopoly, okay? And we're just going to observe their behavior as we play. It's always heads up Monopoly, and we're always going to do a card force so that the researcher is the banker. That is, pick the top hat, which hand has the top hat in it. But I have two top hats, so whichever one you pick has the top hat. And so I have to be the banker. In the beginning of the game, oh no, yeah, we need a rules adjustment. So because you won and I'm the banker, because you guessed the top hat and I'm the banker, you get to roll 2 dice per turn. I only get to roll 1 die per turn. That means you're zooming around the board, right? My research participant is zooming around the board. And they are passing go a lot. And every time you pass go, you get your $200. And they are landing on a bunch of properties. And if I happen to own something, they're often able to just skip over it because they have 2 dice. But I'm going around the board really slowly. And when I come up against a property that the participant owns, I'm almost guaranteed to land on them because I'm only able to roll small numbers. I hardly ever pass go and collect $200, right? So there's a structural advantage, and that structural advantage causes the research participant always to win the game of Monopoly. Fine, good. So what? Well, we watch their behavior deteriorate over the game. In the beginning, they have to ask the banker for change and things like this, and they ask politely, could I please get change for this 20? I don't have enough smalls to pay this little tax or whatever thing is happening, right? But over the course of the game, as they start to win, as they start to accrue money, they think they're accruing power and they start to treat the banker worse and worse. It's no longer, may I please have, it's give me, right? Give me change for this, or I'll take. Just a little change in manners. Is that super diagnostic? Well, the other thing you can do is you can ask these participants why they won. And they'll acknowledge usually that they have a structural advantage, but they'll downplay it. Well, I had a small structural advantage. That's true. I had 2 dice, but really I was able to parlay that small advantage with wise choices and judicious play into bigger advantages later. And actually, I won because I'm smart. Um, that's diagnostic as hell, isn't it? Put it all together, and the problem with money and morality is ultimately empathy. The person driving the car forgets what it was like to be the pedestrian, and the nicer the car, the greater the forgetting. Rich people don't volunteer and hardly give money to charities unless it benefits them because they don't remember what it's like to need things. Rich people don't have empathy for poor people's problems. That ultimately is why their charitable efforts, such as they are, tend to be self serving. And this is the crux of our discussion today. how would it benefit the fascist crowd to play always to that traditional male gender norm that boys don't cry, men don't cry, men bottle up their emotions inside, show up to work anyway, rub some dirt on it, power through? What's good about that? As a psychologist, I have to tell you nothing's good about that. Holding in hard emotions, sometimes we'd have to get through a job or get through a day at work. But whatever you push down upon grows stronger and pushes up against you with equal force because it is you. And eventually that stuff has to come out one way or another. If you don't let it flow, then it's gonna blow. But burying sadness and expressing it only as rage, burying grief and being detached, these poison a person's ability to experience empathy. Empathy means not only that I understand how you feel, but that I see you crying and I feel like crying. I feel how you feel. And blunting generations of men's ability to experience their feelings ultimately blunts their empathy. Teaching them to express any feeling as rage blunts their ability to feel sad at the sadness of another person and perhaps form a willing, realistic, and workable coalition with them. And that is the end game.